My name is Linda Cooper, and I'm doing the reading for today's service. Seeing with 2020 Spiritual Vision is the CSL theme for this year, and May's theme is Listen to Your Heart. Today's topic, These Hands. Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith wrote in 40-Day Mind Fast, Soul Feast, Day 3, when you perform that which has been given you to do with an attitude of work, you are actually in servitude to that work. You are a servant to your own burdensome false idea. Service, on the other hand, is freedom. You are, in fact, in service to the supreme creative idea. It is the life of God that is thinking through your mind, working through your hands, walking through your feet. It does the work appointed for you to do and perfects that which concerns you when you no longer work for the little self, but serve the greater self of your being and the universe. And when we see the affirmation, we can speak that together, that truth, with conviction. I know the secret of divine guidance is be still and know. Here within my heart is the all-knowing source of good, the answer to every question, the solution to every problem. I give myself the gift of silence, listen to my heart, and I follow it with confidence. Thank you, everyone. And so it is. And now here's Reverend Kathleen for today's message.
Okay, thank you so much, Linda. That is a great way to start this topic, which I have to say I have a lot of energy about. I'm feeling a great deal of frustration, and I'd say at times outrage about what's going on right now in our country, much less on our planet. And where that comes from is a huge frustration that after all of this time and supposedly development of human consciousness, that we still have this mindset, that there's still this thing going on in the underbelly of race consciousness that is divisive and that is causing a whole lot of suffering, unnecessary suffering. Those of us who've been involved in this teaching for quite some time have been immersing ourselves in the idea of oneness, in the idea of wholeness, in the idea of all-inclusive love. I mean, we talk about it every week. And yet, when we turn on our TVs, we see the remnants of this old paradigm continue to show up. And so I have to ask myself, what will it take? What will it take for all of humanity to wake up so that we can truly live in harmony and fulfill our mission, which is to be the presence of love, co-creating heaven on earth? I have to say that I'm standing in full solidarity with all of my brown and black brothers and sisters, all of you, I should say, black and brown brothers and sisters in our community and across the planet, in knowing that we are here to truly transform this consciousness, this mindset, and we are here to take action too. And in the spirit of Martin Luther King, and I am truly in his camp, believe me, that I support nonviolent tactics. These nonviolent ways of protest have been shown to be effective in the past, and I do believe that they are required, now in this time frame. I also go along with what Martin Luther King said, which is he expressed his disapproval of rioting as socially destructive. And he said, though, that we have to understand that rioting comes from a certain frustration. He calls it the language of the unheard, the language of the unheard. And this month, we're talking about listening to the heart. We're talking about the power of listening. It's not only listening to our own hearts, it's listening to the hearts and words and frustrations of each other. The language of the unheard rioting. That really struck me today. And so I know that in order to have lasting change, we know this in this teaching, that it's going to require a whole different mindset. A whole different mindset. And so that's what my topic is about today. It's called These Hands. And it's about what are the actions that we are to take on the planet, in our lives, in this time, in order to truly transform this consciousness that has been so destructive, so divisive, and to bring on this idea of a new earth that Eckhart Tolle talks about, a new earth in which we all live in harmony, in which we understand that there is really only one race, the human race, that we are all part of that oneness, and that we are all of the same source. So one of the first points that I would like to make is this idea of working for the little self instead of working for the higher self, the God self, whatever you choose to call it, to be working for the greater good, justice and fairness and prosperity for all people. I believe this is what we have been seeing on TV, the things that have been happening, the police officers that have been misusing their role, working for the little self instead of working for the greater idea. I understand that it happens at a subconscious level, for many of the people that act in this way. And I know we all have those moments when we're not truly in service in whatever our work is, and we're complaining or whatever. We're into the little self. So I think it's important that we not get too much into pointing fingers, but instead take a look at the consciousness and what we can do about it to transform it. So you and I, my friends, are not merely here on earth to survive until we reach some far-off heaven. We know this. We know that heaven and hell are states of mind. Heaven is a state of mind in which we understand our unity and our oneness, and we understand the importance of being the presence of love, and we work together for prosperity for all. A hellish state of consciousness is this divisive consciousness that we're seeing. It is an idea that somehow we are separate, and somehow some people are better than other people, or some people deserve more privileges than others. And that mindset, we know, is a hellish mindset. It's actually as hellish for the person who has it as it is for the others, although it may not seem that way, because it causes a lot of fear and anger and other self-destructive kinds of behaviors and thoughts. So we are here then, we say this every week, we're here to be the presence of love and discover that heaven is within. This is something we discover within us. We all have this. It gets covered over with false beliefs. I do understand that, but the heavenly state, that's our divinity. That's the field of pure potentiality and possibility that lies within us. That is the state that we are here to reveal. Heaven within. And then once we discover it, we, through meditation, through spiritual study, through spiritual community connection, listening and connecting with each other and listening to ourselves deeply. When we cultivate that, then we are able, through our words and our actions, to be that, to demonstrate that, to work together to bring that forth on the planet. So we have an overarching purpose, all of us, and that is the overarching purpose, is to be love and to bring it forth onto the planet. Thich Nhat Hanh spoke to the importance of understanding. You know, in the Bible it says, with all thy getting, get understanding. In Thich Nhat Hanh's work, he said that understanding is the key to love. And in order to understand, we must listen. We must first listen by going within and listening in our meditative practice to the mind chatter, and the mind chatter that causes suffering. We can begin to hear that surface chatter that causes our suffering. And also we need to take the time to go even beneath that surface mind and listen deeply to the true self, the God self, that presence within us that speaks of love and speaks from a place of love. That's where our true guidance comes from. So in order to really be a good listener with others, we must be able to learn to listen to ourselves. And in listening to ourselves and in listening to others, we reach understanding. In reaching understanding, we can get to the root cause of what's going on, and we can work together to alleviate the pain and the suffering. So I'm here today to talk about this cause in consciousness that is behind the murder of George Floyd and other people of color who have died at the hands of police and other people who are caught up in this mindset of divisiveness, and is behind the protests that are happening in every major city in the United States right now. And I have been asking myself, how can I best serve the greater good with this message today? And I am trusting, as I let go and let the greater self work through me, that the message will come across to all of us. I know so many of us are there already. We're so done with this mindset. But maybe it will help us all find a path as a spiritual community to really transform this thing once and for all, and to stand in solidarity with you of us who are our brown and black brothers and sisters. I'd like to begin by sharing a reading or a posting on Facebook that was an essay by a white male minister. He's a United Methodist minister in Dallas, in the heart of the South. And just to show you, there are movements in consciousness that are taking place, and there are people that are speaking out. His name is Eric Folker. He's the pastor again of Kessler Park United Methodist Church in Dallas. And so he spoke directly to this cause that I'm talking about, the cause that's behind the murder of George Floyd and others, which he calls white privilege, and we've heard this before. It's another term, really, I think it's a more modern term for the racism that we have been working diligently to eliminate for quite some time now. He said that black and brown people in America are not allowed the privilege of their understandable and justifiable anger in ways that white people are. He said that's one side of the equation. The other side is that white people are allowed time and time again to behave in ways that no other race is allowed to behave. And the case in point was he talked about the armed white thugs who stormed the police in the Michigan House. And I don't know if you saw photos of that, but they actually got up in the face. They were in with their guns, up in the faces of the police officers who just stood there, yelling at them, spitting at them in the face. This is white privilege. Can you imagine if a group of black or brown men showed up and behaved in the same way? And so we can see that it's time for us to put all of this self-induced nonsense. That's that's a term for sin, an acronym for sin. And of course, my way of looking at the word sin is that it's an error of thinking. It's not about condemnation. It's an error in thinking. To put this error in thinking to rest. So this pastor goes on to say that far too many white people in America, due to their personal histories and even in the codified laws of our nation, are convinced that they are above the law and that applies to anyone else. And those particular officers who they've received military training. Actually, the knee behind the neck is military training. They're using military training on people to detain them. And so you put white privilege with the arrests of black and brown people and using these military tactics, and there's a setup here for murder, for death. It's important for us to realize that this is what's going on. This is a very dangerous mindset. This pastor goes on to say, "Aren't you outraged?" He said, "I am." He said, "We are swimming so deeply in an ocean of white privilege that we don't even see how dangerous this state of mind is. I'm ready for things to change now. I've been ready. Are you?" And then he went on to say how uncomfortable he was with conflict, that he's actually kind of a conflict foe, but he felt that it was time for him to speak up. And he said, "So you might be thinking, talking about this is divisive." And here was his reply, which I think is so powerful, and this is so in alignment with our diversity inclusion training that I've been receiving through Centers for Spiritual Living. He said, "I've listened very closely to my beloved black and brown friends over the years. They are begging us, white people, to talk about this more. And more than talk, they are begging us to use our privilege to change the law and the behavior of fellow white people. They are absolutely convinced that unless and until we speak up and act up and truly confront the scourge of white privilege and power, nothing will change." And so he goes on to say, hopefully, the destructive nature of white privilege, how it's enforced, codified, and accepted in law, is starting to dawn on you. And then hopefully, dear white siblings, you are ready to do something about it. So this is the message. The message is what is ours to do. How, as individuals, and how, as a spiritual community, can we stand in solidity with the entire human race? I'm including everyone in this, for the greater good of all. How are we to serve? What would love do in this situation? I'm going to go back to the concept of listening, which is the theme of this month. I think it's important, and I realize I haven't done this enough myself, is to really sit down and listen to one another, particularly have conversations with those of you who are our black and brown brothers and sisters. We are a diverse community, and I am so grateful for that. But I have friends and close friends who are, who are different, a different skin shade than I am. I'm so grateful for that, because having conversations and having an opportunity to listen deeply, I think, is our first step. And then I think we can move forward into what actions we are to take as a spiritual community to bring this, usher in this new state of mind, which is actually what I'm going to say is, I think the reason why we are so outraged is because this state, this racism, is unnatural. White supremacy, white privilege is unnatural. Treating people inhumanely is unnatural. This is all unnatural. Our natural state is a state of love. It's a state of, it's that heavenly state of consciousness that I talked about. Our natural state is realizing we are all one and how important it is that we listen to one another deeply and support one another in co-creating this thing we call heaven on earth, a world that works for everyone. We know that it begins with spiritual practice. We know that it must move into action. There's the inner and there's the outer. That's what's required. And so with these hands, with these hearts, with these voices, together, my brothers and my sisters, I know we are poised. We have the teaching that supports this. We are poised to truly make a difference on this planet. I don't care how large our community is or how small it is. We have within us the very power of love, which is the power that it can accomplish anything. So let's turn within in prayer. I give my thanks for knowing that the power, the presence, the life, and the light of God, which is perfect love, all-inclusive love, resides in the core and the center of our very being. I give thanks in knowing that we are one in the one source, in the universe, in God, that we are of that presence, that we are made of love, that love is our essence. And I know that love can cast out all fear. Love has the power to transform consciousness. I know that we are the instruments of love. Our hands, our feet, our voices, our hearts, our minds, our very being are the very power of the universe itself. And I am calling right here and right now for the full unleashing of this power for good. Not only within myself, within our community, but on this planet, right here and right now. I give my thanks for the demonstration of heaven on earth, the good that comes from this, and I release this word into the universal law of mind, and so it is.
And so it is.